So if you watch my videos, you know I like to have a little more of a produced, prepared style, whereas a lot of YouTubers will just point the camera at themselves and walk around talking. I don't love this style of video, but I'm also incredibly busy this week. I'm trying to finish this thing up for an event that is coming up in about a week, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. So we're going to get a little lazy with the video today. I'm also going to talk about a bunch of different parts of the car. There's not really a theme to this, except that I'm very busy and I'm running out of time. So let's get to it. No intro. We don't have time for that. Skip the intro. Oh, here's the Jag. The sad, dusty, forgotten Jag. I will get to this though, very soon, after I get this other race car running. Really want to get the interior done on this so I can actually drive it around. S600, also forgotten and covered, parked in the yard. I haven't actually done any of the stuff that I said I was going to do after I drove this. I gave it the first drive to the Peterson and it didn't rev over 7 grand, and there were a few other things wrong with it. All of those things are still wrong with it. Haven't done anything with this, but I will soon, I promise. The Grom, however, I would not hold your breath on. I started to tune it, but apparently there's something wrong with the tune. I think it has the 2 wires for the crankshaft sensor switched around, but it doesn't really matter because I have currently stolen the muffler and the wideband oxygen sensor for use on the land speed car, so it's a bit of a disassembly right now. Actually, can't remember if we talked about this or not, but this is my cooling tank. It's going up front. The engine has its own cooling circuit that has, you know, engine coolant cycling around through it, and it's got the pump that comes with the motorcycle engine, and that pumps through this little plate heat exchanger. So inlet, one outlet, and then on the other inlet and outlet, I have just water coming from this tank up front. I didn't actually size this heat exchanger. I just kind of found a cheap used one and bought it, so I don't actually know if it's gonna work. I do have temperature sensors on all 4 inlets and outlets, so what I can do is I can run the engine and then I can check the temperature, all 4 of those temperatures, and I can plug it into an equation and see what my actual heat rejection is. And then I can sort of characterize it for other scenarios. This is sort of backwards engineering. It's kind of the wrong way to do it, but it's the way I did it. So here we go. I also have this pump here. Also don't know if this will work. This is actually like an auxiliary pump from a Mercedes. It seems to pump quite a bit of fluid. It seems to be able to push through this heat exchanger just fine, so we'll see. Got the tubes going through the frame. Shoved a little bit of foam in there, mostly just to keep salt and water and stuff out so I don't rust the inside of this tube. The tank up front, this is a Send Cut Send Special. I just drew this up in CAD and had them laser cut it out. I originally had this sort of a boob looking thing here. I originally had the cap there, but then my steering rods were kind of going through it. I originally had these bolts in here, but then I changed the steering ratio and moved that out, so now there's actually room for this, but it's too late. I already capped that up and moved this over here. Although if I go too much higher with the ratio, I'm gonna have to move it back, but we're good for now. Ooh, water. To get in and out, I have this latched here. This thing latches and unlatches and flips up out of the way, and I went ahead and added a ram here. So this actually stays up, so I flip it up and it'll just stay up. And I've got it at such an angle that obviously when you move it down, gravity works on it more, and then it'll just kind of like fall in. So this is my cockpit. This is sort of a quick and dirty button plate thing here. I sat down and kind of felt it out and figured out where I wanted all my buttons to be. I've got 2 throttle cables, so I'm doing a motorcycle throttle on this, and I did 2 cables so I can sort of roll it back to close it. One of the requirements for cars is that you have a tow hook on your pedal so you can pull the accelerator pedal back, and I don't have a pedal, so I kind of figured this satisfies that requirement. The easy one to get to is just right here. This is my upshift, so as I drive, I can just upshift. Super easy button right there, kind of big. Next to it is downshift, and I don't want to accidentally downshift, so I got a kind of a heavy spring button. This one's a lot more, you know, you have to mean it. Parachute's up here. This is a little out of the way, but also relatively easy to press. So hopefully I don't accidentally press that, but still want it accessible with my hands on the steering wheel. If something bad happens, I need to be able to hit that pretty quickly. Starter, it's another hard press. This is my main ignition switch, and then just my fuel pump. You have to have a fuel pump kill. Technically this kills the fuel pump, but I like the redundancy there. I wasn't really sure what to do with the fire system, so I went with there's 2 separate bottles, and one of them is mostly the engine and a little bit me, and one is mostly me and a little bit the engine. I did this because I want the redundancy. If I pull this and I'm on fire and nothing happens, I want to be able to pull this. I don't want to have a situation where the fire system doesn't work. That does occasionally happen, like it happened with Rob and Shoot at Pikes Peak this year, and that sounds kind of crappy if I'm stuck in a car and I'm going 200 trying to slow down and people are miles away from me. So a little bit of redundancy there. I had originally a cable clutch, and this was absolute hot garbage. The cable was about 12 feet long. I had a 90-degree sort of like a metal bend on it to get the cable to go forward, and then it wrapped around and went back. And that cable caused so much drag that I had to like squeeze really hard to get it to disengage. So I ditched the cable and I went with hydraulic. The motor, the BMW, comes with a cable activated clutch, so I had to buy a hydraulic slave cylinder. This is a master cylinder from a motorcycle. I originally got this slave cylinder for a car here, and it's a lot bigger. It's designed for a much bigger master cylinder. So when I pulled in, I hooked this thing up and I pulled in the clutch, and it moved this about 150 thousandths of an inch, which was just not quite enough to disengage the clutch. So I looked around and found a motorcycle slave cylinder, and it is absolutely tiny. Look at this thing. Look how tiny that is. I don't really trust this. It just looks flimsy and weak. I just don't trust it. So what I did is I got another one of these levers, one on eBay, and I changed the ratio a little bit. So you can kind of see where the line is for the cable that goes through. I just drilled a hole closer. It's about 80% the distance, so that this actually moves, this rotates farther for a short distance moving here. It worked out pretty well. This slave cylinder for a car moves this plenty good. I've got a little bit of extra movement in it, so I got a little bit of margin. Works great. I'm kind of mounting it way over here. This is kind of just like a little goofy looking, but I just got had some all threads sitting around, so I went ahead and made that. Not the most elegant solution, but it works. As I mentioned before, I have this thing bolted to be able to split it in half, front half and back half, and I went ahead and added these bleed ports so I can actually disconnect the hydraulic clutch and the hydraulic brakes right here, and I can also bleed it because these are both local maximums, local high points for those hydraulic systems. My intake here, I welded this up out of aluminum, and I had a couple little air hole leaks in it, and rather than going back and welding it and testing it, it was really hard to pressure test this thing, so I just got some 2-part epoxy and kind of smeared it on the seams and then painted it with a epoxy paint. It looks like crap, but I don't care. It works. This is a problem for future Matt, or not a problem at all. Haven't decided yet. The igniter for coils on motorcycles is often in the ECU, and my ECU won't fire these without an igniter. So you can buy a sort of little box or some little igniters to do it, but the easier thing is to just get other ignition coils. These are actually from a Yukon, a GMC Yukon. The cool thing about this is I can latch my timing light on here and get my timing correct. Fuel tank is from a dragster. This might be a junior dragster fuel tank. It's pretty small, but it's still more fuel than I'll ever need. This is basically a ripoff of a Bosch. Bunch of different people make this fuel pump. It has a pre-filter kind of hidden under there, and then the fuel pump, and then the after filter that is also a regulator. This is pretty cool. They put these on Corvettes for a bunch of years. It's a filter regulator in one, gives about 58 PSI. Pretty reliable, pretty cool, relatively cheap. Had to do a bunch of AN fittings to connect these all together, so I spent like $8 million on AN fittings. I generally hate AN fittings, but you know, these things sort of are designed to work with them, so there we go. You can see my oil cooler kind of zip tied haphazardly to the side of the car right here. I will probably do a oil to coolant heat exchanger later, but this is working for now, so we'll call it good. Earlier today, I bled the brakes, which is one of my least favorite automotive things to do. I hate brake fluid, but they work now, so that's nice. I'm currently in the process of putting a chain on. Gotta have one of those. And my adjustment, if you remember, for chain tension is to slide the entire swing arm back. So I'll have to adjust this and then get a shorter bolt here to clear everything. I also need to build a tail for this thing. I have parachute tubes, which I'm gonna make out of this big long piece of aluminized steel exhaust tubing here. But I need to build this structure coming off the back. It'll be about 5 feet long, and I'll have it bolt onto here so I can remove it to get this thing on a shorter trailer and stuff. That also has parachute tubes, and it'll have a little roller so I can push this with a push car, and also I will have a 12-volt disconnect switch back there. The actual 12-volt kill switch is on the side right here, and I'll just have it pull cable running to this that'll go all the way back to the tail. You have to have a disconnect either on the front or the back by rules, so put it on the back. Still need to finish up my air shifter, so I got like a Bimba cylinder, or I don't know who makes it, but air cylinder, double acting air cylinder here with 2 hoses going to it. And you hit it with pressurized air and it'll shift forward or back. I also need to put like a manual lever on this so I can kind of reach back here and shift it into neutral or whatever when I need to, rather than reaching next to this hot exhaust. I do need to finish the pressurized part of the air shifter. You can see my solenoids here and my air tank, HPA air tank, and a box of McMaster parts, and some fittings, and my ECU. I got a PDM there. I will talk about all this stuff in a later video, but I am using a Megasquirt MS3 Pro, Aurora Apogee PDM, and it's all working pretty well so far, but this is an entire video on its own. Probably won't get that video out until after Bonneville, so that might be a little bit, you know, not, what do you call it, in timeline? There's a word for that. As you can see, my garage looks like crap. Looks like a car exploded. It's not normally very clean anyway, to be honest, but you know, I've been busy. Hopefully we can make the event. I'm gonna say 50-50 chance right now. I'm not actually too worried about it, because if I don't make Speed Week, I can still make, there's another event at the end of September, middle September. So that gives me an extra 6 weeks, which should be just fine. So we'll see what happens, and wish me luck. It used to be that you had to impress people to get people to watch your show. Now you just have to impress the algorithm. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. All hail the algorithm.